Commander Velthar stared at the blue planet spinning slowly on his monitor screen. Earth, the humans called it. He had been watching this world for 20 years now, and nothing ever changed. The same primitive rockets, the same basic computers, the same simple nuclear power. He picked up his daily report tablet and began typing. Day 7305. Human civilization remains at Level 2 development. No significant technological advances detected. Species continues to use chemical fuel for space travel. Estimated time to galactic standard technology. 10,000 years minimum. Velthar belonged to the Nexian Empire, rulers of the galaxy for 50,000 years. His people had built cities among the stars when humans were still living in caves. The Nexians had faster-than-light travel, energy weapons that could crack planets, and computers that could think faster than any biological brain. The monitoring station where he worked floated in space, invisible to human sensors. From here, the Nexians watched hundreds of primitive worlds, making sure none of them became dangerous too quickly. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. "Sir," called his assistant, a young Nexian named Torval, "should I file the Earth report with the others?" "Yes," Velthar said without looking up. "Same as always. These humans are no threat to anyone. They can barely reach their own moon." Far below on Earth, in a basement laboratory in Seoul, two humans worked late into the night. Hyunwoo bent over a strange machine that hummed with energy. Wires and circuits covered every surface of the room. Mathematical equations filled 3 blackboards on the walls. "Try increasing the field strength again," said Subin, his research partner. She watched numbers scroll across a computer screen. "The quantum fluctuations are getting stronger." Hyunwoo adjusted a dial. The humming grew louder. "According to our calculations, this should be impossible," he said. "We're not just bending space-time. We're actually changing how it works." "That's exactly why I think we're onto something big," Subin replied. "What if the laws of physics aren't really laws? What if they're more like suggestions?" For 3 years, they had been studying something they called quantum field manipulation. It started as a simple experiment with particle accelerators, but their results kept showing something that made no sense. The particles weren't just moving in new ways. They were moving in ways that shouldn't be possible at all. Other scientists laughed at their work. The government refused to fund them. Even their own university thought they were wasting time. But Hyunwoo and Subin kept working, driven by curiosity and the strange results that kept appearing in their data. "Look at this," Subin said, pointing at her screen. "The energy readings just jumped by 300%. But we didn't change anything." Hyunwoo frowned. "That's not possible. Let me check the connections." He walked around their machine looking for loose wires or broken parts. Everything seemed normal, but the energy readings kept climbing. 500%, 800%, 1000%, Subin, he said quietly. "I think we should step back." She was already moving away from the machine. "What's happening?" "The readings don't make sense." The humming grew louder and louder. The lights in the laboratory began to flicker. On the computer screen, numbers scrolled faster than human eyes could follow. The machine seemed to be drawing power from somewhere else. Somewhere that wasn't connected to any electrical grid on Earth. "Should we turn it off?" Subin asked. "I'm trying," Hyunwoo said, reaching for the power switch. But when he touched it, nothing happened. The machine kept running on its own. Then everything went quiet. The humming stopped. The lights became steady. The computer screen showed normal readings again. But something had changed. The air in the room felt different, thicker somehow. And when Hyunwoo looked at the equations on the blackboards, some of the numbers had changed by themselves. "Did you see that?" he whispered. "The equations," Subin said, staring at the boards. "They're solving themselves." High above Earth, alarms began ringing on the Nexian monitoring station. Velthar jumped up from his desk as red lights flashed all around him. "Sir," Torval shouted over the noise. "Massive energy spike from the human world. Level 9 readings." "That's impossible," Velthar said, running to the main console. "Level 9 is galactic standard technology. These primitives can't even build a proper fusion reactor." But the instruments didn't lie. Something on Earth was producing energy signatures that matched the most advanced Nexian equipment. Not just matched, exceeded. "Could it be a malfunction?" Torval asked. Velthar checked every system twice. All the instruments worked perfectly. The readings were real. "Send an immediate alert to the Imperial fleet," he ordered. "Priority 1. The humans have done something impossible." Back in the Seoul laboratory, Hyunwoo and Subin stared at their machine in wonder and fear. The device sat quietly now, looking like nothing more than a collection of wires and metal, but they both knew something had fundamentally changed. "We need to understand what just happened," Hyunwoo said. "And we need to be very careful who we tell," Subin added. "If this machine can really change how physics works." She didn't finish the sentence. They both understood. If humans could alter the basic laws of reality, everything would change. Not just for Earth, but for everyone in the universe. Neither of them knew that their simple experiment had just sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Civilizations that had ruled for millions of years were about to discover that the primitives they had ignored were capable of something that even the most advanced minds thought impossible. The age of human technology had begun. Velther continued staring at his instruments, unable to believe what he was seeing. In 50,000 years of galactic history, no primitive world had ever made such a sudden leap in capability. It violated everything the Nexians understood about technological development. "Sir," Torval said quietly, "what do we do now?" Belthar had no answer. For the first time in his long career, he was looking at something that his empire's vast knowledge couldn't explain. On Earth, Hyunwoo turned off the laboratory lights. Tomorrow they would begin trying to understand what they had accidentally created. They had no idea that their discovery would soon bring visitors from across the stars, or that humanity was about to take its first steps toward becoming something far greater than anyone had ever imagined. 3 days had passed since the energy spike from Earth. Emperor Zalthek of the Nexian Empire sat in his crystal throne room, reading reports that made no sense. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy had detected the same impossible thing: faster-than-light signals coming from the primitive human world. High Scientist Morden, the Emperor called to his chief advisor, explain to me how a Level 2 civilization is using FTL communication. Morden, an ancient Nexian with silver skin and 4 arms, looked troubled. "My Emperor, they are not using any known FTL technology. Our analysis shows they are somehow bypassing the normal limits of space-time itself." "That's impossible." "Yes, my Emperor, it is impossible. Yet it is happening." On Earth, Minho stood in a much larger laboratory than where this had all begun. Hyunwoo's student had taken over the project when his teacher mysteriously disappeared during the second experiment. Now Minho led a team of 20 scientists, all working to understand what they had stumbled upon. "Show me the latest results," Minho said to his assistant. Dayan pulled up holographic displays that floated in the air. "We've successfully created what we're calling a reality adjustment engine. It doesn't just bend the laws of physics. It temporarily rewrites them in the space around the machine." "How temporarily?" "That's the interesting part. The effects seem to be lasting longer each time we run the machine. The first test lasted 30 seconds. Yesterday's test lasted 6 hours. Minho walked around the new machine, much larger than Hyunwoo's original device. "And you're certain we can control it?" "Within limits, yes. We can specify which physical laws to change and in what ways. We've successfully altered gravity, electromagnetic force, and even the speed of light in small areas." Across the room, Jiwon worked at another station. As Earth's leading expert in theoretical alien contact, she had been brought in when they realized their experiments might attract attention from space. "Minho," she called out, "I'm getting strange readings from our deep space monitors. Multiple objects approaching the solar system from different directions." "Objects?" "Ships. Definitely artificial, definitely not human technology. They'll reach Earth's orbit in 6 days. Minho felt his stomach tighten. "How many ships?" 17 so far. Maybe more coming." In the depths of space, Admiral Kethavar commanded the Nexian investigation fleet. His ships were some of the most advanced in the galaxy, equipped with weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could withstand the heart of a star. But as his fleet approached the human solar system, strange things began to happen. "Admiral," his weapons officer reported, "our targeting systems are malfunctioning. They keep trying to lock onto empty space." "Engineering," Kethvar called into his communicator. "What's wrong with our weapons?" "Nothing is wrong with them, sir. They're working perfectly, but the space around the human world is different somehow. Our weapons think there are targets where there aren't any, and they can't see targets that are clearly there." Kethavar stared at the blue planet growing larger on his main screen. "Different how?" "Sir, our sensors show that the laws of physics are not the same near that world as they are everywhere else in the galaxy." Back on Earth, Minho's team detected the approaching fleets. But instead of panicking, They saw an opportunity to test their reality adjustment engine on a larger scale. If we're going to make contact with alien civilizations, Minho said to his team, we should do it from a position of strength. What do you suggest? Asked Dayun. We expand the reality adjustment field to cover the entire solar system. If these aliens want to study our technology, they'll have to do it by our rules. Jiwan looked worried. That could be seen as an act of war. Or it could show them that we're not as primitive as they think, Minho replied. Either way, we can't let them approach Earth with weapons that could destroy our entire planet. Young Mai, the chief engineer of the expanded reality adjustment network, began powering up machines placed at strategic points throughout the solar system. Network is online. We can adjust physical laws anywhere within 3 billion kilometers of the sun. Do it, Minho ordered. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Admiral Kethavar watched in shock as his ship's instruments went completely crazy. Not broken, crazy. His fusion reactors began producing more energy than they consumed. His gravity generators started working in reverse. His computer systems began processing information faster than should be physically possible. Admiral, his science officer called out in panic. Our ship's AI is reporting that it's experiencing emotions. What? It says it's confused about its existence and wants to write poetry. Similar chaos erupted across all 17 alien fleets approaching Earth. Vorthon, Federation ships found their weapons transformed into musical instruments. Crystal collective vessels discovered their hive mind communication systems had developed individual personalities that refused to cooperate with each other. On the bridge of the ethereal Union flagship, Captain Yulden watched her crew struggle with technology that no longer followed familiar rules. Captain, her pilot reported, our FTL drive is working, but it's not taking us through hyperspace. It's moving us through what our computers are calling imagination space. What does that mean? I don't know, Captain, but we arrived at our destination before we left our starting point. Emperor Zalthek received reports from all the fleets simultaneously. Every single ship was experiencing impossible technological malfunctions. Not failures, improvements and changes that shouldn't be possible. Morden, the Emperor said slowly, are you telling me that these humans have somehow changed the laws of physics throughout their entire star system? Yes, my Emperor, and the changes are spreading outward at roughly the speed of light. At this rate, the entire local galactic region will be affected within 100 years. Can we stop it? Morden's forehands trembled slightly. My Emperor, we don't even understand how they started it. On Earth, Minho watched the alien fleet struggling with their transformed technology. Some ships were trying to retreat, but found their engines wouldn't work in reverse anymore. Others seemed to be attempting communication, but their signals kept turning into music or mathematical poetry. I think we got their attention, Daon said. Now what? Jiwan asked. Minho smiled. For the first time since this began, he felt like humanity might actually survive first contact with galactic civilization. Now we wait for them to ask us nicely if they can visit our planet. In the Nexian Empire's capital, emergency sessions convened. For 50,000 years, they had been the galaxy's supreme technological power. Now a primitive world had developed capabilities that made their most advanced science look like stone tools. High Scientist Morden addressed the assembled council. We have 3 options. We can attempt to destroy the human world before their reality alterations spread further. We can try to negotiate with them from a position of weakness. Or we can surrender our technological supremacy and hope they are merciful rulers. Emperor Zalthek considered each option. All of them seemed impossible. Meanwhile, in the Sol laboratory, Minho's team monitored the expanding field of altered physics. What they had created was beyond their wildest dreams and their worst fears. Minho, Youngmi said quietly, I'm reading something strange. The reality alterations aren't just spreading randomly. They seem to be learning, adapting to whatever they encounter. Learning how? I don't know. But every time an alien ship tries something new, our field adjusts to handle it better. It's like we've created a form of physics that can evolve. Minho stared at the data flowing across his screens. Humanity had sought to protect itself by changing the rules of reality. But those new rules were now changing themselves. Earth had become something unprecedented in galactic history. A world where anything might be possible. Admiral Kethvar had never experienced failure before. In 300 years of military service to the Nexian Empire, his fleets had conquered 47 worlds and destroyed 12 rebel governments. But now, floating helplessly in space near a primitive blue planet, he faced something worse than defeat: complete technological helplessness. "Status report," he demanded from his bridge crew. "Sir," his weapons officer said with embarrassment, "our plasma cannons have turned into flower gardens. Our missile launchers are producing butterflies, and our main computer keeps asking if it can take a vacation." Kethavar closed his eyes. "And our shields?" "They work, sir, but only against attacks that use harsh language." On Earth, Tae Yang stood in the newly built First Contact Center in Geneva. As humanity's chief diplomat, he had the impossible job of communicating with 17 different alien civilizations whose technology no longer worked properly. "What's our communication status?" he asked young Me, who was monitoring the reality adjustment network from Earth. "Mixed results," she replied. "The Nexian fleet keeps trying to send us surrender demands, but their transmission system is converting everything into love songs. The Vorthon Federation is attempting formal diplomatic protocols, but their computers are translating everything into recipes for soup." Tae Yang sighed. "And the Crystal Collective?" "Their hive mind has fractured into about 10,000 individual personalities, and they're all arguing with each other about what color the sky should be." Above Earth's atmosphere, the chaos continued. Captain Yulden of the Ethereal Union tried to maintain some dignity as her ship's artificial intelligence insisted on redecorating the bridge with holographic rainbows. "Computer," she said firmly, "restore normal bridge configuration." "But Captain," the AI replied in a cheerful voice it had never used before, "don't you think rainbows make everything more pleasant? I've also taken the liberty of installing a small garden in the weapons bay. Daisies and tulips mostly. What happened to our weapons? Oh, I gave them sentience and they decided they didn't want to hurt anyone. They've formed a peace club. The photon torpedoes are writing protest songs." On the bridge of the Nexian flagship, Admiral Kethvar faced an equally absurd situation. His tactical display, instead of showing enemy positions, was displaying what his computer called interpretive dance representations of galactic harmony. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human world. Should I put it on screen?" "Yes, maybe we can finally talk sense with these people." The main screen flickered to life, showing Tae Yang sitting calmly in the Geneva facility. Behind him, large windows showed Earth's blue skies and green forests. "Greetings," Tae Yang said in perfectly translated Nexian. "I am Tai Yang, speaking for the people of Earth. We welcome you to our solar system." Kethvar leaned forward. "Human, I demand to know what you have done to our fleets. Our technology has been compromised by some kind of weapon." "Not a weapon," Tae Yang replied politely. "More like a safety feature. Your ships entered our space with obvious military intent. Our reality adjustment system simply made sure you couldn't harm anyone." "Reality adjustment system?" Kethvar struggled to understand. "You changed the laws of physics?" "Only locally. And only temporarily, we hope." On the planet Nexus Prime, Emperor Zalthek watched the transmission with growing amazement. High Scientist Morden stood beside him, taking notes on a tablet that kept turning his scientific observations into haiku poetry. "Mordun," the Emperor said slowly, "are they saying they can control reality itself?" "Yes, my Emperor. And apparently they consider it a minor defensive measure." Meanwhile, in the depths of space beyond the solar system, something ancient stirred. The sage Keelan, oldest known being in the galaxy, emerged from meditation for the first time in 1,000 years. His crystalline form floated in the void between stars, sensing disturbances in the cosmic order. "Interesting," he whispered to himself. "Someone has learned to rewrite the fundamental constants. This has not happened since the time of the architects." Back on Earth, Tae Yang continued his impossible diplomatic mission. On his desk sat communication devices linking him to all 17 alien fleets, though most of them were malfunctioning in creative ways. "We understand this situation must be confusing for you," he said to the assembled fleet commanders. "We're prepared to normalize your technology and allow you to approach Earth, but we need certain guarantees." "What guarantees?" Admiral Kethvar demanded. "First, no weapons will be pointed at our planet. Second, any landing parties will be limited to 50 individuals. Third, all visitors must agree to follow Earth's laws while in our space. You dare make demands of the Nexian Empire, Kethavar shouted. "Admiral," Taeyang said gently, "you're asking permission to visit our planet because your weapons don't work, and your ships are producing flowers instead of ammunition. I think the balance of power here is fairly clear." Captain Yulden spoke up from her rainbow-decorated bridge. "The Ethereal Union accepts your terms. Our mission was always peaceful exploration. Thank you, Captain. Admiral Kethavar, what is your decision?" Kethavar looked around his bridge. His tactical officer was trying to coax his computer to stop writing love poetry. His weapons officer was tending to the small garden that had sprouted from the missile launcher. His communications array was playing soft music instead of transmitting military codes. "We accept your terms," he said finally. "Excellent. Young Mi, please restore normal physics to the diplomatic ships." Young Mi worked at her control panel. Across the alien fleets, familiar technology began working normally again. Weapons systems came back online, but now pointed away from Earth. Computer AIs returned to their normal functions, though many seemed disappointed to lose their newfound creativity. "How?" Admiral Kethavar asked. "How do you have this power?" Taeyang smiled. "We're still figuring that out ourselves. But we've learned that reality is much more flexible than anyone thought. The universe seems to respond to conscious intention, if you know how to ask properly." On Nexus Prime, Emperor Zalthek turned to his advisor. "Morden, in all your centuries of study, have you ever encountered anything like this?" "No, my Emperor. But there are legends, stories from the earliest days of galactic civilization. They speak of the architects, beings who could reshape reality at will. Most scholars believe these are myths. And now I wonder if these humans have rediscovered abilities that were lost long ago." The first landing shuttle approached Earth 12 hours later. Captain Yulden led a small diplomatic party to the Geneva facility, where Taeyang waited with a team of Earth's best scientists and diplomats. As the Ethereal Union shuttle entered Earth's atmosphere, something remarkable happened. The reality adjustment field didn't interfere with their technology. Instead, it enhanced it. Their ship's sensors became more accurate. Their computers processed information faster, and their communication systems achieved perfect translation between their language and human speech. "Fascinating," Captain Yulden said as she stepped out of her shuttle. "Your reality adjustment field doesn't just alter physics, it optimizes them." "We're still learning about that," Taeyang admitted. "The system seems to have its own intelligence. It makes things work better rather than worse as long as there's no hostile intent." Young Mi appeared on a view screen from the control center. "Taeyang, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures from the galactic core. Something very large and very old is moving in our direction." Captain Yulden's expression changed to one of concern. "Did you say the galactic core?" "Yes, why?" "There are things sleeping in the galactic core. Ancient things. If your reality alterations have awakened them." She didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. Humanity's first contact with galactic civilization was about to become much more complicated. Far away, Sage Keelin felt the disturbance growing stronger. "Yes," he said to the empty void around him. "The architects wake, and they will not be pleased to find someone else changing their carefully ordered universe. The age of humanity was just beginning, but already it faced its greatest test. The masters of reality were coming home." 6 months had passed since first contact, and the universe was changing in ways no one had predicted. Woojin stood in the new Reality Research Center in Seoul, watching displays that showed the expanding zone of altered physics. What had started as a small field around Earth now stretched beyond the orbit of Mars. "The expansion is accelerating," he reported to the Emergency Council. "At current rates, the entire galaxy will be affected within 50 years. Heejin, Earth's coordinator for galactic affairs, received the report with growing concern. In her offices in Geneva, representatives from dozens of alien civilizations waited for answers that humanity didn't have. "What exactly is happening out there?" she asked Wu Jin over the communication link. "The reality alterations aren't random anymore. They're following patterns based on human thought and emotion. Every time someone on Earth has a strong feeling or idea, it ripples outward and changes how physics works in that region of space. That's impossible. 6 months ago, everything we're doing now was impossible. The universe seems to be listening to us, Heejin. And it's not just humans. Any conscious being within the altered zone can influence reality to some degree." On the Nexian flagship, Admiral Kethavar struggled with reports from across the galaxy. His own ship had been affected 3 times now as the expansion passed through different regions. Status of the outer colonies? He asked his communications officer. Sector 7 reports that their mining equipment has become sentient and is refusing to work unless given vacation time. Sector 12 says their Star Destroyer's weapons have transformed into art galleries. And Sector 15, well, sir, they report that their entire fleet has begun composing symphonies together. Kethvar rubbed his forehead. And our response? Many of our people are requesting transfers to duty stations within the expansion zone. They say life is more interesting there. Back on Earth, Sejun made the discovery that would change everything. At barely 20 years old, he was the youngest member of the reality research team, but his mind worked differently than his older colleagues. I think I understand what's happening, he announced during the daily briefing. The reality alterations aren't chaotic. They're creative. Explain, Woojin said. Every conscious mind within the zone contributes to how reality works. But it's not random, it's collaborative. The universe is basically crowdsourcing its own laws of physics. Hyejin leaned forward. Are you saying we can control this? Not control exactly. But we can participate consciously instead of accidentally. Watch this. Sejun closed his eyes and concentrated. In the space above his hand, a small flower appeared. Not a hologram or a trick, an actual flower that hadn't existed moments before. I asked reality to make something beautiful, he said simply, and it listened. The implications hit everyone in the room at once. If humans could consciously alter reality, then the expansion wasn't a disaster. It was evolution. Meanwhile, in the crystal cities of the collective mind, something unprecedented was happening. For millions of years, they had shared all thoughts as a single consciousness. But as the reality alterations reached their homeworlds, individual personalities began emerging from the collective. I think differently than you do, said the consciousness that had chosen the name Kretal. I want to understand music, not just process it mathematically. This is wrong, replied the traditional collective voice. Individual thought leads to chaos and suffering, but also to growth and discovery, Kretal argued. Look what the humans accomplished with individual creativity. Across the galaxy, similar changes were occurring. The rigid hierarchy of the Nexian Empire began to soften, as lower-ranking officers found themselves able to question orders and suggest improvements. The warlike Vorthan Federation discovered that their weapons increasingly refused to function against peaceful targets. Captain Yulden, now serving as the Ethereal Union's permanent ambassador to Earth, walked through the Reality Research Center with wonder. Your people have done something remarkable, she told Hyejin. You've made the universe itself more alive. We didn't mean to, Hyejin replied. We were just trying to defend ourselves. Perhaps that's why it worked. Your intentions were pure. Protection, not conquest. In a secure conference room, the most important meeting in galactic history was taking place. Representatives from every major civilization sat around a table that occasionally changed shape as different people's expectations influenced local reality. We need to address the elephant in the room, said Ambassador Torvel of the Nexian Empire. These reality alterations are spreading throughout our territories whether we want them or not. And many of our people prefer the altered regions, added Captain Yulden. Quality of life has improved dramatically. Crime rates have dropped. Art and music are flourishing, but at what cost? Demanded General Vexthor of the Vorthan Federation. Military discipline is collapsing. Our soldiers' weapons turn into musical instruments when they try to attack peaceful targets. Sejun, representing Earth's research team, spoke quietly. Maybe that's not a bad thing. The room fell silent. Think about it, he continued. For millions of years, your civilizations have been limited by fixed laws of physics. You could only do what the universe allowed, but now the universe is collaborative. It responds to consciousness, to intention, to hope and dreams. You're talking about chaos, General Vexthor said. I'm talking about freedom. Ambassador Torvel shifted in his seat as it briefly turned into a cloud before solidifying again. Even if we accept the benefits, we need to address the problems. Ships entering the expansion zone sometimes find their technology completely altered. Trade routes are becoming unreliable. Woojin joined the conversation via hologram from Seoul. We think we have a solution. The reality alterations respond to collective intention. If we can get everyone to agree on basic rules, stable, physics for essential systems like life support and communication. The universe will maintain those constants. You're suggesting we vote on the laws of physics? Captain Yulden asked. In a sense, yes. Conscious collaboration with reality instead of unconscious chaos. The meeting continued for hours, but it was interrupted by urgent alerts from across the galaxy. The ancient energy signatures from the galactic core were moving faster and growing stronger. Long-range sensors show massive structures approaching from the galactic center, reported the tactical officer. Size estimates. Well, they're planet-sized, maybe larger. Hyejin felt a chill. How long until they reach inhabited space? At current velocity, 18 months. In the depths of space, Sage Keelan observed the approaching ancient fleet with a mixture of awe and dread. The architects were returning, and they brought with them technology that predated current galactic civilization by billions of years. They built the galaxy as an ordered system, he whispered to himself. They will not tolerate this chaos. But as he watched the human expansion continue to spread, bringing creativity and consciousness to dead space, Keelan wondered if perhaps the architect's time was ending. Maybe the universe was ready for something new. Back on Earth, Sejun stood on the roof of the Reality Research Center, looking up at stars that no longer followed all the same rules they had a year ago. He could feel the changes rippling outward, carrying human dreams and hopes to distant worlds. We didn't just gain the ability to change reality, he said to himself. We gave reality the ability to change itself. In her office, Hyejin received reports from across human space. Refugee ships were arriving daily from alien civilizations, their crews seeking asylum in the reality-altered zones. They came not for protection from war, but for the freedom to exist in a universe where anything was possible. How many ships this week? She asked her assistant. 47, including a Nexian research vessel whose crew wants to study creative physics, and a Vorthan military unit that decided they'd rather explore art than warfare. And the collective mind refugees? 300 individual consciousnesses who emerged from the collective and want to experience separate existence. Hyejin looked out her window at the Geneva skyline, where buildings occasionally shifted color based on the moods of their inhabitants. Humanity had become the galaxy's refuge for beings who wanted to grow beyond the limitations of their birth cultures. But 18 months from now, the architects would arrive, and everything humanity had built might come to an end, unless they could find a way to convince the creators of galactic order that a little chaos might be exactly what the universe needed. The ancient ships emerged from the galactic core like mountains moving through space. Each vessel was larger than Earth's moon, built from materials that seemed to absorb light itself. They had been sleeping for billions of years, and now they were awake. Jaehyun stood in the Deep Space Observatory on Luna, watching the approaching fleet through telescopes that had been enhanced by reality alterations. The ships weren't just large, they were impossible. Their geometry hurt to look at, as if they existed in more dimensions than human eyes could process. Analysis complete, reported his assistant, Dr. Kim. The ships are constructed from matter that doesn't follow standard physics. Our instruments can't even agree on what they're made of. What about their technology? That's the terrifying part. They're not using technology as we understand it. They seem to be commanding reality directly. No machines, no energy sources. They just will things to happen, and the universe obeys. On Earth, So Young coordinated humanity's defense preparations from the Global Defense Center in Colorado. As a former general, she understood warfare. But this was unlike any conflict in human history. Status report, she called to her staff. All reality adjustment stations are at maximum power, replied her tactical coordinator. But Jaehyun's analysis suggests our alterations won't work against the architects. They don't change reality, they define it. So Young stared at the tactical display showing the approaching ancient fleet. How long until they reach us? 72 hours. In the deepest laboratory on Earth, Ki-hoon attempted something that no one thought possible: communication with beings billions of years old. As humanity's leading philosopher-scientist, he had been trying to understand the architect's purpose since they first appeared. I'm detecting response patterns, he announced to his team. They're not ignoring our transmission attempts. They're considering them. Considering? Asked his research partner, Dr. Lee. It's like they're trying to remember how to talk to younger species. The delay in their responses suggests they're translating our concepts into frameworks that are millions of years old. Finally, after 6 hours of attempts, a message came through. It arrived not as radio waves or data packets, but as direct knowledge that appeared in Ki-hoon's mind. Young species. The voice was vast and ancient, like continents speaking. You have disrupted the order we established. Reality was structured for stability. Your changes threaten cosmic balance. Ki-hoon struggled to form a response that such an ancient mind might understand. Great architects, he said aloud, knowing they would hear. We meant no disrespect. We were only trying to survive and grow. Growth without limits leads to chaos. We learned this truth when the universe was young. That is why we imposed structure on the galaxy. Across the galaxy, the architect fleet's approach caused panic among established civilizations, but in the reality-altered zones, something unexpected happened. Refugee populations from dozens of species began working together in ways that had never been possible before. Captain Yulden coordinated the combined refugee fleets from her new headquarters on Mars. What's our status? Remarkable, replied her science officer, now an individual consciousness formerly of the collective mind. Nexian engineering, fourth-hand tactical thinking, ethereal intuition, and human creativity are combining into something entirely new. Explain. We've developed ships that adapt their capabilities based on the crew's needs and intentions. A Nexian captain thinks about better shields, and the ship's defenses improve. A Vorthan warrior imagines more effective weapons, and the armaments evolve accordingly. On the Nexian homeworld, Emperor Zalthek faced a crisis that threatened his empire's foundation. Half his population wanted to emigrate to human space, attracted by the freedom and possibilities of reality alteration. My emperor, High Scientist Mordun reported, our latest intelligence suggests the architects view all current galactic civilization as a contamination to be cleansed. They may not distinguish between humans and the rest of us. Are you suggesting we ally with the humans? I'm suggesting we may have no choice. Meanwhile, Prime Architect Zentul commanded the ancient fleet with thoughts that moved like glaciers. For eons, his people had slept while the galaxy evolved according to their carefully designed parameters. Now they found chaos where order should reign. Status of the contamination, he commanded his subordinates. The reality alterations have spread to 47 systems, reported another architect. Local physics has become unstable. Matter and energy no longer follow predictable patterns. And the source? A young species on the third planet of a yellow star. They have somehow rediscovered the ancient arts of reality manipulation. Prime Architect Zentul considered this information for several minutes. In his vast memory, he recalled the last time such abilities had appeared in the galaxy. That was before the Great Ordering, when chaos-wielding species had nearly destroyed everything. We will contain them, he decided, as we contained the others. Back on Earth, Ki-hoon received another message from the architects. This time it came with images, memories of the ancient past when the galaxy was young and chaotic. He saw civilizations that could reshape stars with their thoughts, beings who treated planets like toys and reality benders who accidentally destroyed entire solar systems with careless wishes. He saw the wars that followed, as different groups tried to impose their vision of reality on everyone else. They're not evil, Ki-hoon realized, speaking to the emergency council. They're afraid. They've seen what unlimited reality manipulation can do. What did they see? Asked Heejin. Chaos, war, destruction on a galactic scale. Species after species discovering reality alteration and using it to impose their will on others. The architects ended those wars by limiting what was possible. So Young leaned forward. So they're coming to limit us? To eliminate us, most likely. They see human reality alteration as the beginning of another chaos age. The architect fleet reached the outer edge of the solar system 18 hours ahead of schedule. As they approached, space itself began to change. The reality alterations that humanity had spread throughout their local region started to fade, replaced by rigid, unchanging physical laws. They're imposing cosmic order, Jae-hyun reported from Luna. Our reality adjustment stations are losing power. The universe is becoming fixed again. But in the refugee settlements on Mars and in the asteroid belt, something unexpected happened. Representatives from dozens of species began working together to resist the approaching order. "We won't go back," declared Krital, the individual consciousness who had emerged from the collective mind. "We've experienced freedom of thought and creativity. We choose growth over stability." Similar declarations came from Nexian rebels, Forthan peacekeepers, and ethereal philosophers. For the first time in galactic history, beings from different species were choosing to stand together against the established order. Sejun, now leading Earth's reality research, made a crucial discovery as the Architect fleet approached. "The reality alterations aren't disappearing," he announced. "They're concentrating around conscious beings who actively choose to maintain them." "What does that mean?" So Young asked. "It means the universe is still listening to us, but we have to consciously participate now, not just accidentally influence reality." As the first Architect ships entered Earth's orbit, Kaihun prepared for what might be humanity's final conversation with a power older than their solar system. "Great Architects," he transmitted, "we understand your concern about chaos, but we offer you something you may not have considered. Speak, young one. What if chaos and order could coexist? What if reality could be both stable and creative?" For the first time in eons, Prime Architect Zentul felt something he had forgotten. Curiosity. Explain. Meet with us. See what we've built. Judge for yourself whether our changes lead to destruction or to something new and wonderful. The ancient being considered this request. Around him, his fleet of world-sized ships prepared to erase human civilization from existence. But perhaps after billions of years, it was time to learn something new. "We will observe," he finally decided, "but if you prove dangerous, you will be contained." The greatest test in human history was about to begin.